Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Macon Campbell and this is maconSTUFF. So in the last video we just finished up restoring and rebuilding the stop action. Very rewarding to see how that turned out, looking at the before and the after pictures. It left me feeling really proud of what I had achieved there. So that was a bit of a long video, and as I mentioned at the end of the video, I'm thinking about shortening the video somewhat, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing anyway. So let's move over to the organ. Let me show you what I'm planning to do for the next part of this series. So here we go. The next part, if you're taking it in layers, is this key section or key action. I'm not sure exactly what the technical name for that is, and underneath those is all the couplers, as I mentioned before. And once you get to removing the swells, there's one in the back and one at the front over here, you'll get to the mutes, and beneath those you will find the reed cells and the reeds themselves. And below that you'll get this, which was called the reed pan. This reed pan, as I mentioned before, is something that I'm still fairly worried about. As you can see, there are two significant cracks over here. When you pump, I don't know if you can hear that, but you can definitely hear the air escaping out of those cracks, which is a fairly big problem. I know obviously that if I just take this thing off and glue it back together, because of the shrinkage in the wood, if I just glue them back together, I'm going to lose probably 2, maybe 3 millimeters, which is obviously going to create some problems. So I'm probably going to have to fill those up somehow. But as I say, that's for our next video. For today I'm just going to try and strip down to the reed pan. So I'm going to start by taking off the Vox Humana, and then I'll start tackling this bit. So let's get going. So as you can see, there's a crack running through here. This is the block that the stop action actually ties into. So I'm either going to have to make a new one of these, or I might just peel this open and glue it back up with epoxy or a fairly strong wood glue. I won't need to use animal hide on here, I think, because this is obviously, as I said before, not the kind of thing that you want to come apart again. So the stronger the glue, the better, I suppose. Okay, quick update here. After removing the screws on the side here, I noticed that I could still not get this thing off. So obviously there's still something holding it on. I suspected it would be around the middle here because it's fairly stuck there. If I take this one out, I'll notice there is another screw right there. I'd like to take this whole thing out as one unit, but I'm going to need to take these two out just to get that screw out. So before I do anything else, I'm just going to go ahead and number it. You won't believe what I just found in here. Take a look at this. Here is one of the missing stop faces. And this one is called Principal 4-foot. That's pretty cool. I noticed another one lying here. I really hope that it's not just a piece of cardboard. Echo 8-foot. Just like that, I found my 2 missing stop faces. So now I have all of them. That's just wonderful. I'm so happy now. Another thing worth mentioning, This is really dirty. It's kind of weird that that excites me, because I'm already starting to wonder what it's going to look like when it's all clean and looking as good as new. Another thing that's really interesting is you can really start to see now how the bass and the treble couplers work. Those are the stops all the way on the left and the right. So once the bass coupler, which is this one, or the treble coupler on this side, are pulled, basically it will lift this up, bringing it into position where the key can press these ones. So as you press one of those, this long bar activates a note 1 octave down. This one, when lifted up, same thing, activates 1 octave higher. I really find it interesting figuring out how all these mechanisms work and how they go together. It's so cool to start piecing together what each stop actually does when it's pulled. But whatever, enough of that. Let's carry on taking this thing apart. My goodness, this is so cool. I just found something else in there. I'm not sure what it is, but it looks like a photograph. I'm going to grab my tweezers and I'm going to take that out quickly. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, I just cracked it when I bent it open. So I'm just going to leave it as is. Bring this a bit closer. So I've got no idea who that is, but I just found his picture inside a 120-year-old reed organ. How cool is that? So let me try piece together where we are right now. Those last two things that I took off from the back and the front are what I'll call the swells. All they basically do is slightly increase your volume. These little spindles over here are obviously what are activated by pressing the keys. These things over here that you can see are, from what I understand, called the mutes, and without activating these mutes, your organ will produce no sound. This mute is for the treble section on this side, this mute is for the bass section. Then there is another treble and bass mute at the back for the rear set of reeds, and over here the reed and mute section for the sub bass. Here is one of the mutes being opened. As you can see, those little brass things sticking out there are the actual reeds. So if this mute is not opened, then those reeds will produce no sound. Those little square holes that are just above the reeds are, I think, called a reed cell. So the reed goes into the cell, and underneath each one of those reeds should be a corresponding hole inside the reed pan through which air is blown to produce the sound by the reed. As I mentioned, this is the treble section in the back. Over there is the bass section and the sub bass, and moving around here to the front is the treble section in the front and the bass section in the front. Okay, so I think we've reached the last level right before we get to the reed pan. I'm not exactly sure what the correct name is for this, but this is where all the mutes are and all the reeds and so on. Now the problem is I can't seem to figure out how to get this thing out, and so I think what I'm going to have to do, and I didn't really want to do this, is I'm going to have to loosen all these screws around the reed pan and take this out along with the reed pan and see if there are perhaps mounting screws coming in from the bottom. I'm probably going to figure out that there was an easier way way to do this once I have gone through this process. Well, that's Murphy's Law. So let's carry on. Okay, so apparently loosening all these screws doesn't just detach the reed pan's top from the box, it loosens the whole box, as you can see. So let me round up these screws, take this thing off, and then we should be at the very top of the bellows where the air enters this cavity. And then we can see about getting this action separated from this reed pan. Okay, well, that doesn't look good. This is going to make figuring out what was going on underneath here a lot harder. The only good thing about this is that it seems that all of these are exactly the same. So I'm not going to have to worry about putting them all back in the same place. It looks like they're running on springs at the bottom here, which was fastened by screws to the bottom of the reed pan from the top, which I'm also guessing I should not have taken out. To figure out the rest of this, I'm going to have to inspect the bottom of the reed pan. So let's move over there. Okay, so I've already dropped a couple of these dowels through the bottom due to my stupid move back there. So these screws over here are the ones that were holding on the block of wood that have the springs stuck inside them. I suspect that if I left those in place, all of that would have come out with this whole section. Being that that's not the case, I'm going to lift this up and see what we have underneath here. Okay, so it looks like 3 of these got left behind, which is a very good thing, because that now gives me a good idea of how they're supposed to be positioned. I noticed that here are the screws that are holding the whole mechanism that contain the mutes and the reeds at the top. So let's give it a shot. Okay, so that didn't turn out as planned. I took out those screws and that entire unit still seems fairly fixed on there. Another thing that I'm thinking is that I should most probably, before I go any further than this, take out all these reeds and store them in a safe place, because if they get damaged, then I'm truly screwed. As it stands, I don't have a way of storing these in an organized manner. So I think I'm first going to have to go ahead and find some other kind of storage container that has enough spaces that I can safely store all of these reeds. There are 61 keys, so just the front and the rear reed banks are 122 reeds plus the 12 extra reeds for the sub bass. Each one of them is a specific note at a specific frequency, so you don't want to get these mixed up. So just to round out this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and put all of these back where they're supposed to be, reattach the block that was holding the springs, which was keeping these in. Once I've done that, we'll start further disassembly and cleaning of all these parts. Okay, so there's no way that I'm going to get this thing screwed back in place without taking out all these springs. There's just too much tension. So I'm going to have to take out all the springs, reattach this piece of wood, and then I can put the springs back again. So let's do that. Okay, so don't worry, I didn't put this all back together because I'm going to leave it as is. On the contrary, I just put it back together so that I could see how all these parts fit together and how they work. Now that I have a better idea of how all this works, the next step would obviously be to take it apart again and start the cleaning and restoration process. Obviously, as I mentioned before, I've got these cracks that I need to fix. Need to sand all of this down, clean it, do the same with these, and then very importantly, I'm going to clean all of these and try and determine if any of them need to be replaced or not. But we're not there just yet. I did happen to go and look for storage containers that I can keep all these reeds in, and I came back unsuccessful. I still have to figure out some way of keeping the reeds organized so I don't get those mixed up. But I'm going to be saving that for the next video, so thank you very much for watching. If there are any questions that you'd like to ask me regarding what I did in this specific episode, hit me up. I'll answer as best I can. And until next time, keep making stuff.